we're creating about as many jobs as those other metros combined.
So Bend hates to be compared to Boulder.
Could have a whole hour conversation about this, but I think it sets us up another kind of foundation for our region performing well.
You know, it's pretty forward-thinking, developments for an old busted-up sawmill town, right? Simply put, Jim's an institution here in Bend. His current roles include, correct me if I'm wrong, chairman at Hum Kombucha, founder of the Lifetime Leaders at the Bend Chamber of Commerce, former board chair at Opportunity Knocks and the Boys and Girls Club, and you received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Chamber of Commerce.
All true, yes.
Pretty impressive. So you're definitely the proper way to start off this podcast, and I'd just like to welcome you and thank you for your time.
Thank you, and thank you for putting this together. I think our community can use it.
Yeah, the real goal of why I'm trying to do this is to have a optimistic discussion about what's happening in Bend, and to offer some gratitude for the people that made it great. Towns like this aren't created from pessimists. And we all have our challenges with, a fast-growing town, but I think there's so much opportunity and so many great people here. I just want to, I want to put the spotlight on that.
Good. Okay. So coincidentally, I just had a meeting with the folks from the Bend Bulletin who could say kind of the same thing that you. They're not new. This is they're a turnaround. You're a startup, right? But I think they both. I welcome the Bulletin back as being a community partner, and you could be one too.
Well, I appreciate that. I think the Bulletin, even just from what I've seen on the editorials that they put out about the direction they want to take it, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, they're good people, and as a matter of fact, the publisher and the editor, the publisher is moving here from Salem.
Okay.
The editor is moving here from Klamath Falls, so they're making a commitment.
Oh, that's great. And I'm not sure if you say the names, but there are quite a few local Bend citizens that actually got behind the purchase of it, didn't they?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, yeah. And the names are public. Mike Hollern, Bill Smith, Amy Tykeson.
Yep.
I think Todd Taylor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, they're continuing to push it forward. So I think that's an exciting development. I was a little worried, when the Bend Bulletin was struggling. I think it's kind of the breadcrumbs in the history of what Bend is, and it would have been a real shame to lose that institution.
Yeah. Well, actually, I don't think they played a role that a newspaper should in our burgeoning community, otherwise burgeoning community. We've missed having them as part of that, so we're really excited about having them back.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, let's take a minute, and if you don't mind, just share your origin story. When did you find Bend, and when did you know this was going to be your home?
Yeah. So I'm a bona fide old guy. So when I graduated from college in '58, do the math.
Okay.
Right? It's serious. When I graduated from college, I was in ROTC in college.
Okay.
Went to the Air Force, and the Air Force decided, I was a finance officer, and the Air Force decided I should go and live and spend 3 years in Klamath Falls, Oregon. There's an air base there. There was, though there still is. And so I lived in Klamath Falls for 3 years, and those 3 years I kind of fell in love with Oregon, but not with Klamath Falls.
Sure.
And so I thought, someday I'll be back. Then I went on to my business career, which is in Minneapolis. I was an entrepreneur, sold my last business in 1990. We moved to San Diego and gave that a shot, getting away from Minneapolis winters. And the culture shock was a little. So we lasted 4 years.
Yeah.
And then said, let's go somewhere else. And at the time, I was a writer, still am, as a matter of fact. And my wife worked remotely for a company out of Minneapolis, so we could go anywhere. So I remembered my days in Klamath Falls, and so let's take a look at Oregon. And when you take a look at Oregon, even then, in 1994, Bend still stuck out.
Yeah.
And so what could we do but come up to Bend? I kind of conned my wife into it.
Yeah.
She's a little bit more of a big city girl, and I'm very comfortable at it. It was 30,000 at the time.
Yeah.
So So here we are, and here we hope we'll be for a long time.
Well, yeah, it's my origin story of kind of finding Bend was a little bit different, but I had grown up in Colorado, and when my wife and I wanted to look for something that had the feel of a resort town, a mountain town of Colorado, but had the dynamic entrepreneurial business climate, that I was seeking, and a place I wanted to raise my kid. We looked at every probable suspect from North and West Colorado. We were in the Bozeman's and the Jacksons and all that, but they just really didn't have that dynamic. And I went to school in Boulder, and we can get to that in a second. It's somewhat akin to this, but we were actually just driving up the coast. I knew nothing about Bend. We were driving up the coast of Oregon, and it was one of those horrendous or pretty typical 50-degree days where the rain is blowing sideways on the coast, and we just decided to turn in to get out of the weather, and we drove into Bend at midnight, and we came in here, and I woke up the next morning and I stared at these Cascade Peaks, and it was done. So but I didn't see Bend for the first time until 2009. And so it was much later. What did Bend look like when you arrived? Paint the picture, because here we are looking over the old mill. Bill Smith, redeveloped all this. This was the busted up old sawmill. What did the picture of Bend look like when you arrived?
Paint the picture with a story. Yeah. So the day after we got up here, my wife went to the grocery store, and obviously our cars had California plates because we had lived in San Diego for 4 years prior. And she pulls into the parking lot, and some guy in a flannel shirt and driving on a pickup come up and, "Hey, lady, get back to California." So that's what Bend looked like in '94. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but you get the point.
Sure.
It had a bit of a cowboy lager flavor, and obviously today you don't see that anymore. And besides that, you don't see too many California plates because the people have learned their lesson. They change their plates the first day they can get here.
Yeah, I think it's I think hopefully that most of that is tongue in cheek. Similar with the bumper stickers you see floating around town saying Bend sucks, don't move here.
Yeah.
I hope it's tongue in cheek, because in general this is one of the more friendly towns that I've been in, and hopefully we can continue to maintain that going forward as we continue to grow.
Yep.
And I hear that continually as people come here, especially from California and Washington, where it's a little bit more of a closed personality. You're around a lot of people, and people kind of shut down a little bit. And I often have my clients ask me, they ask, "Is everyone trying to take advantage of me? Everyone is trying to start conversations. I think they're trying to get something out of me." And it's funny because you kind of see that veneer wear off over a couple months of being here before they just let down their guard and just become a Bend citizen.
Well, you're from Colorado, so I'm from I was born and raised in Iowa,
Sure.
and my business career is in Minneapolis, so I'm a Midwestern guy.
Yeah.
And there's a certain culture about the Midwest, and I think Bend has it.
Yep.
I think they had it in 1994 when I came. Today, 2019, I think they still have it.
Yeah.
It's changed a little bit maybe, but overall, I think that's the culture, that Midwestern feel, the friendliness part. Hey, stranger, you walk down Main Street or wherever. So I don't see that changing even with the growth, even with the dynamic growth that we've had. I think our culture still has a Midwestern flavor to it, and for me anyway, Midwestern flavor works.
Yeah, I sure hope we can maintain that. Yeah, my family's from the Midwest, and it's good, kind people out there.
Yep.
Good, hardworking, humble people.
Yeah, put their French fries or the ketchup on their French fries, right?
Oh, for sure. Is there any other way? Well, to speak to that of kind of the culture of Bend, what's the intangible that makes Bend so different for you? Bend's a different town for a lot of different people. There's people that come here from the Bay Area where they can have their venture capital tech world in a beautiful environment. For other people, it's their quiet mountain town. But there's kind of an underlying commonality there that attracts everybody. And can you kind of put your finger on what that magic is?
Yeah, easily.
Okay.
I can put. I'll give you two answers.
Sure.
There's more. And if you talk to anybody that's been around for a while, they'll give you their own answers. But my two, and I'll start with a story, is in the early 2000s, the state of Oregon hired me to I founded an organization called Opportunity Knocks in Bend in 1996, and it was very successful. So the state of Oregon said, "Hey, Jim, would you do this in other communities in Bend?" And so I said, "Of course." And so I did. Started the Opportunity Knocks organizations in like Klamath Falls, Grants Pass, Medford, Coos Bay, Newport, Salem, Portland, LeGrand, and spent a fair amount of time on the road for 3 years doing it. And as in the process, I learned what makes communities tick.
Okay.
Because I'd go into a community, say Klamath Falls, and I'd meet with the Chamber of Commerce, and I'd meet with a couple of bankers and Rotary members and what have you, trying to find a way to start building this organization.
Yeah.
And so I got to understand those communities, and inevitably the drive back home from Klamath Falls or wherever, I'm coming up 97, and I can hardly wait to get back to the energy level that exists in Bend, because it doesn't exist in other communities.
Yeah.
It's just different. The energy is higher here. You can feel it. You can feel it in our co-working spaces are full of Bend's energy. So energy is one. And the second one is collaboration. This is the most collaborative community in the state, maybe in the nation. It's hard you can't believe, even in the nonprofit sector, where the nonprofit sector in a small town, most of the nonprofits compete for dollars, right?
Yep.
I mean, there's a finite amount of money in a community like this, and so they could compete, but they don't. They work together. And it's totally true in the business. There's so many examples of how Bend's entrepreneurial ecosystem has created this collaborative culture that everybody works together. It's awesome. It's so great to be part of. And myself and another guy went to Boulder.
Yep.
And here goes the Boulder topic you. But we went to Boulder in 2014. The purpose was to see what they had in their entrepreneurial ecosystem that we could bring back to Bend. And we go there and we find out that they don't have any. We have a broader ecosystem. We have more organizations and programs that benefit entrepreneurs than Boulder does. The difference is that in scale, Boulder's, for instance, venture capital fund was $250 million. Ours was at the time $10 million. Now it's 40.
Okay.
But so they were deeper, but we were much broader. And also in Boulder, and I'll slow down here in just a minute.
Oh, no, I love it.
You got me on the topic.
Keep it coming.
Also in Boulder, the business community and the government didn't speak. The city council was very left-leaning, and the business community obviously leaned to the right.
Okay.
And they would not talk. They hated each other. And so they just didn't talk, and so they just went about their business with it. That's not the case in Bend, and obviously government and business has some by nature, some differences, but here in Bend, we work together.
Sure. I mean, do you think it's that they take it for granted because, Boulder's next to a couple million person metropolitan center and they have access to all that capital? I mean, nothing is given to you here in Bend, and nobody gets a job transfer out of the blue to Bend. Everyone that's here was, self-selected. They made conscious decision to move to somewhere that maybe on paper there wasn't a job waiting for them. Do you think it kind of goes back to gratitude in that everyone's it's a little bit of kind of the old manifest destiny where, people come out west to make their own way and they're appreciative of the opportunity? Do you think that there's something there?
I think that yes. The answer is yes, but I think it's more culture.
Okay.
And it dates back to, the people that made Bend the way it started.
Okay.
The Bill Healy, who basically built Mount Bachelor out of nothing, right? And a visionary guy. And then Mike Hollern, who's one of my modern day heroes of Bend. And these people were all collaborative in nature. And so this culture of collaboration just grew from its founders, from people like Bill and Mike, and And so that's the way we are. That's the way we do business. That's the way we live here in Bend, right? Collaboratively.
So, I mean, are we going to lose that as we get bigger? As we cross the 100,000 person threshold. And I think the projections for 2060 are 150,000 people. How do we maintain that collaborative culture?
Well, if you'd ask someone in when I came to town, when it was in '94, when it was 30,000.
Sure.
So now if you'd ask someone, what's Bend going to look like when it's 100,000? And they would, oh God, I can't imagine what it would look like. Well, you know what? I don't think it's that much different.
Okay.
At least in its culture. Yep. Obviously, we have traffic problems, we have affordable housing problems, those kind of stuff. But I think the culture of the community hasn't changed that much.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, obviously, if it's the leaders that made us the way we are today, who do you see on the horizon, or who do you think is really kind of moving the needle and kind of, foot on the accelerator to keep this thing going in a positive and dynamic manner? I mean, what are the names that just come to the top of your mind?
Well, so here's what. I just had this same discussion with the bulletin editor, like at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
We talked about
perfect.
Yeah, so I'm still hot on the topic. So if you look at the leadership of Bend, you look at Mike Holler and Bill Smith, Neil Bryant, the folks that are on the north side of 70. Then there's the next tier of leaderships coming along, and it's Todd Taylor, Preston Calicut, Kirk Schuler, names like that. They're all probably mid-50s, early 50s, and they're all very community-oriented. They make a difference.
Yep.
Then there's the next tier, the 30-something, right, that comes along. And this is where our newly remodeled Chamber of Commerce comes in.
Yeah.
Leadership Bend. You've heard of Leadership
Absolutely.
Bend, right?
Yeah.
So Leadership Bend is supposedly working to develop those kind of people. So they have 30 people a year cycling through that Leadership Bend program. They've also got YPN, the YPN Youth Professional Network.
Correct, yeah.
And doing the same thing. So thanks to the Chamber for creating an environment for Bend to develop the next phase of leadership, from Mike to Todd so I think it's really cool. I mean, I don't know who invented it, but it sure is working.
Well, you have a lot to do with that. I mean, opportunity knocks, that all plays into it, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah, well, it's impressive, and these are enlightening discussions for me, because it really gets my gears turning to go from the point of saying, okay, Bend has been a great platform for me developing my career, raising my family, and it's just a reminder that Bend didn't happen by accident. These opportunities didn't happen by accident, and Bend didn't owe me or any of the people that move here anything, but yet that opportunity is here for us. Yeah. And, it just gets me to the point where, I feel a gratitude, but I think there's a burr under my saddle that it's time to give back, right? And hopefully we can, kind of spread that message. And, especially, I was looking at your book here of what makes Bend so special, and you closed it on a whole chapter of rules of citizenship, right? Yeah. And I think in one of your main things here is get involved. Someone else got Bend this far, now it's your turn to contribute, right? Mm-hmm. And that message is definitely recirculating in my brain, and hopefully we can kind of spread that message.
Yeah, well, and that was the origination of the idea. We started a program called Lifetime Leaders with the Chamber. Yep. So we, being myself and one other old timer here in Bend, Dr. Tom Carlson, and and the purpose of Lifetime Leaders is to welcome new people to the community. By new people, we mean, and I think a buzzword is seasoned professionals with leadership skills. Yep. And so we want to welcome to the community. We want to educate them on what makes Bend tick, how it works, the business sector, the nonprofit sector, government, education, how it all works. Yep. And then after we've done that, then to motivate them to get involved, as you just said. So that's the origination of that program, and hopefully out of that will come another resource for leadership in our community at all. One of the attendees in the first group was, in our first cohort of Leadership Bend, was 38 years old.
Yeah.
Right? And he's a tech guy.
Yeah.
And usually the 38-year-old tech guy, he's only got time for his family and his job. But here's a guy that wants to get involved in the community, and he's already doing cool stuff. He's got a software platform for his company. It's called Kiva.org. Mm-hmm. They're one of the world's largest micro-lending organizations, 93 countries. And so they've got this huge software platform. And he's working now with the city now. City Bend has a director of innovation, newly created position, really cool. And so he's working with them they can use Kiva.org's platform for whatever some of the new stuff it is they're doing down there.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, to have that sort of talent and passion here, and someone that's wanting to give back, I think it's pretty special. You know, especially, when a lot of these people come from these big urban markets, they really don't understand how they can move the needle and make an impact on the town. I think we're just at that size where people can kind of, Steve Jobs always talked about you push one side of the earth, and it was a revolutionary thing for him when he learned that he could touch one side and there was a bump on the other, that he could affect change and affect reality. And I think we're hopefully still at that size where people believe that they can do that here.
Yeah, and given the climate in the U.S. today and the world, which is very adversarial.
Sure.
It's even more. It even more spurs this culture of, I can't do anything there, but I can do something here.
Yeah.
And I know I've seen that so much here in Bend is I can't impact what's happening in the U.S., but I can impact what's happening at home. And so maybe we even benefit from all the discourse that's going on out there.
Yeah, maybe we'll have a revolution. I mean, the notes that I'm making from the things that we keep on talking about are, possibility and optimism, and I think it's such a proper way to start the discussion of what we're trying to do here. There's a few final questions I have here. Some of the most kind of anti-growth, pessimistic voices in the market, not everyone has benefited perfectly from Bend's growth. Mm-hmm. Some people have been on the outside of the bubble. Their training and careers didn't allow them to benefit in some of the new sectors of job growth we have here with technology and healthcare and biomedical facilities. And they've been on the outside of the bubble, didn't own during the run-up in housing prices, things like that. But in general, it's still very positive. But what I found is that most of the pessimistic voices I hear are people that are relatively new to Bend. Have you found the same?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have, and I know exactly the location of OSU. Were you in town?
Yes.
So there was a fair amount of, and that the no growthers or the NIMBYs.
Yep.
They're very small, but they can be vocal.
Yep.
I remember when the Southern Crossing, the Southern Bridge here.
Absolutely.
Were you here in town for that?
Just at the edge of it, yeah.
Okay, well, so there was a very vocal group that was anti-Southern. Can you imagine what we'd be like if we didn't have that bridge today?
All of West Bend would have no access. It'd be a huge problem.
It would. And so obviously, stuff happens. When there's 100,000 people, there's going to be 5,000 of them that don't like something, right? Yeah. And so it comes and it goes. The no growth, and I understand some of the elements of no growth. Yeah. Sometimes you have to wait through the stoplight for 2 flashes, right? And it used to be just one. But you could go to somewhere else, and they don't even have stoplights because the traffic never stops. So, that's the U.S., right?
Sure, we've all got a voice. But what was funny is that when I talk to people that have been here for 2-3 generations, they're unanimously pretty positive about what's happened here. I was talking to a friend who grew up here, and he said, when I grew up here, everyone bailed. As soon as we got out of high school, we were gone, and we were never coming back.
Yeah.
And he's saying it's funny now, people are moving from all over the U.S. to come where we used to flee in the 80s. And it's just exciting to be part of this. And I think what we have here is really kind of lightning in a bottle. And there's not many places in the U.S. or really anywhere that I've traveled that has this aura of possibility. We're akin to a Boulder or an Austin or all those type of towns. But when I go visit those places like you, I scratch my head, and when that plane touches down in Redmond, I'm pretty excited to be home.
Well, I just tell you a funny story. So Bend hates to be compared to Boulder.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when we went to Boulder on that study in 2014, one of the messages that came from Boulder is, we don't want to be like Silicon Valley.
Okay.
A year or so ago, I worked with the town of Medford. Sure. on they're trying to develop their entrepreneurial ecosystem, and so they say in Medford or in any other communities in Oregon, they'd say, we don't want to be like Bend. So nobody wants to be like Bend. Bend doesn't want to be like Boulder. Boulder doesn't want to be like Silicon Valley.
It works.
It somehow it works, and I think that we take in Bend and we've got a very entrepreneurial community here.
Sure.
And a good part of the reason for that is Roger Lee at EDCO.
Yeah.
And Roger is the king of collaboration. He'll work with anybody.
Yeah.
And not only that, he'll do the work, get it done, and then hand it off to somebody else.
And not take the credit.
And not
move into the private sector.
Yeah.
Yeah, and lucky enough, upon your recommendation, we have Roger coming in to have this discussion. I think that's going to be a really fun
well, he's
one.
a very self-deprecating, humble guy.
Yep.
So you'll have a hard time getting him to talk about all the cool things that he's done, but it's been a lot.
Okay, well, I'll poke around the edges. So, you seem like a very humble man, but is there a legacy, if there had to be something that you were remembered by in Bend, where would you like to leave your mark? If someone remembered one thing about you here.
Yeah. Huh. Well, that if you'd asked me 10 years ago, I'd have had a totally different answer than I'm about to give you on that.
Okay.
So one of the things I've discovered here in the last 5 or 6 years is mentoring.
Okay.
And not only have I discovered how effective it can be in impacting lives, but how rewarding it can be to be on the mentor side.
Okay.
Hopefully the people that I mentor, which is probably somewhere north of 30 people, would say the reverse of what I just said. And the thing about mentoring is, the downside of mentoring is it's just one-on-one. So
sure.
You do something as opposed to, an organization like Opportunity Knox that can impact hundreds. If you help a business succeed, then there's all kinds of new opportunities in the business. But mentoring is a one-on-one thing. But if you have 100 people mentoring 5 people each, how powerful would that be? So from my standpoint, I'm not ready to leave a legacy yet. I've still got a few years left in me, but I would love to see a legacy of mentoring in our community develop. Actually, the chamber is talking about doing something formally on the issue. This year they took on part of last year in the internships, right?
Yep.
Which is a form of mentoring, right?
Yeah.
And so now they're talking about diving into putting together some mentoring programs for the city of Bend, which I will totally support if they do. So anyway, answer your question, legacy would be now mentoring. That's my latest kick.
Yeah.
Ask me 5 years from now, it might be something else.
Well, you might have another series of books out, or who knows. Well, hey, I don't want to take any more of your time. I'm extremely grateful for you being here. I think this was a really fun discussion, and hopefully people will resonate with some of the things we talked about today.
Well, there's so much to bend. This discussion could have gone on for another 4 or 5 hours.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well, I really appreciate your time.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Brian.
Take care. Thanks for joining us. This is the Ben Beat, and until next time.